Hello all of you beautiful people, Jules here for Whatculture.com, and you know us here at Whatculture. We love covering movie mistakes from time to time. We love egregious ones, we love offensive ones, but you know what we don't cover enough? The strange ones. Well, I'm about to rectify that. As I'm Jules, this is Whatculture.com, and these are the 10 strangest mistakes in movies. Number 10. The face-morphing Winklevoss twins. The Social Network. Even a director as absurdly meticulous as David Fincher can't get everything right 100% of the time, as evidenced by this peculiar oversight in his phenomenal drama, The Social Network. One of the film's greatest triumphs is the visual effects coup of having Armie Hammer play both Winklevoss twins, Cameron and Tyler. And because Hammer wasn't particularly well known in 2010, many people simply assumed that there were actually twin actors that were hired for the gig. Instead, actor Josh Pence played Tyler's stand-in on set while Hammer played Cameron, and Hammer's face was later digitally mapped over the top of Pence's. It's a practically seamless effect, save for one single scene. When the twins approach Mark Zuckerberg to work on their website early on in the film, Josh Pence's face is actually visible at both the start and the end of the scene for about a second each. Pence looks similar enough to Hammer that it's not immediately obvious, but once you do notice it, you'll never not. Quite how these shots simply didn't render Hammer's face is anyone's guess, yet they incredibly managed to slip past even a strident perfectionist like Fincher. Number 9. The self-repairing Porsche. Commando. Though continuity errors are generally common in Hollywood, sometimes they're so egregiously obvious that you have to wonder if every department head was just asleep at the wheel. And so we present perhaps the worst continuity error to ever appear in a major movie, and that's thanks to 1985's Arnold Schwarzenegger starring action classic Commando. After John Matrix chases down the villainous weasel Sully's swanky yellow Porsche, or Porsche if you want to pronounce it like that, is left thoroughly scuffed up. Matrix then kills Sully, I lied, and hops into his car, where the full extent of the damage to the left side of the door is clearly visible. Hilariously though, in the very next shot as Matrix and Cindy drive off, this side of the car miraculously looks good as new. Obviously 2 different cars were used to shoot the sequence, but considering how glaring the difference between their condition is, it's truly flabbergasting that not a single crew member, nor even Schwarzenegger himself, pointed out the mistake. Number 8. Green screen gone wrong. He's all that. If you didn't bother watching Netflix's recent gender-swapped remake of 90s teen comedy She's All That, not a single solitary soul could possibly blame you, because it's terrible. And because He's All That can't simply settle for being a bad movie, it's also a technically incompetent one. Shortly after the film's release, viewers began to report on social media that it contained numerous head-scratching technical mistakes, suggesting the film employed far more use of green screen compositing than the naked eye would immediately believe. In an early scene, social media influencer Paget is singing at a party, and eagle-eyed viewers might notice that her raised hand, well, just vanishes. For whatever reason, it appears that the scene was actually shot in front of a green screen, and because the VFX team screwed up their masking layers, her hand just disappears into the air for a few moments. But that's not the only mistake though, because roughly 64 minutes into the film, if you keep an eye on the background as she and Cameron are talking, you'll see that this is comprised largely of school kids washing cars and is played in slow motion while the foreground unfolds at regular speed. It is weird. So yeah, enjoy that, because let's face it, that's the only thing that you can enjoy in this terrible film. Number 7. Omid Jalili's wardrobe malfunction. The Mummy. 1999's The Mummy is a damn good time. An old-fashioned action-adventure film that's just scary enough to be fun, yet still fit for all the family to watch, except for that one scene with accidental male nudity. Midway through the movie, Warden Gad Hassan is killed when a flesh-eating scarab beetle eats its way through his body and eventually emerges out of his ear. Nasty. While Hassan is frequently squirming around as the scarab eats his way up his body, there's a momentary flash of actor Omid Jalili's penis, which actually falls out of his loose-fitting baggy trousers. Quite how this is even possible and why he's not wearing underwear has never been ascertained, but needless to say, graphic nudity is the last thing that any movie studio wants to sneak into their big-budget family blockbuster, no matter how brief. Number 6. Ellie's mismatched reflection. That awkward moment. Now don't feel bad if you don't remember that awkward moment, which arrived and evaporated from the cultural consciousness in a blip in early 2014. Its single most memorable moment, in fact, just might be this fascinatingly strange production gaffe. When Ellie and Jason are hanging out at a coffee shop, you might notice that her reflection in the nearby window doesn't actually match up with what she's doing in front of a camera. Clearly, there was some sort of issue with the reflection during shooting, perhaps maybe a visible crew member, and so the VFX team simply composited in a reflection from another take, assuming that nobody would notice. It's subtle enough that it hardly destroys the scene, but it's a unique kind of movie mistake that rarely occurs and so proves all the more intriguing as a result. Number 5. A fly flew inside the camera. Kenny and Company. Movie mistakes don't get much stranger or more singular than this. In the 1976 dramedy Kenny and Company, there's a most bizarre happening during one of the film's very early scenes. At roughly the 11-minute mark, keep your eye on the left-hand side of the screen, and for about a second you'll see a weird dark visual aberration gliding about the frame. According to the director, this was the result of a fly getting trapped in between the camera sensor and the camera lens during the shooting, causing it to fly across the frame for a moment before seemingly managing to free itself. While hardly a scene-ruining mistake, it's one of the odder and more unexpected issues that you'll ever find in a movie. Number 4. Worst street sweeper ever. Quantum of Solace. I mean, just look at him. Just look at him. What is going on here? This is the weirdest mistake ever. Number 3. The FBI agent is bleeding before he dies. Passenger 57. Wesley Snipes' 1992 action vehicle Passenger 57 may be a trainload of schlock, but it's a reliably well-crafted thriller that nevertheless makes one ridiculous mistake in the early scenes. You see, all hell breaks loose when terrorist Charles Rain is freed after his henchwomen posing as flight attendants murdered the FBI agents on the flight. Rains' second-in-command, Sabrina, pulls out a gun and shoots 2 FBI agents in the head. Though if you look closely, you'll see that one of the agents is already covered in bloody wound makeup a few seconds before she actually shoots him. Presumably this was a measure to save time and to not have to break from shooting coverage of the sequence to get the actor in makeup. The filmmakers probably assumed that nobody would actually notice a bloodied actor in the background of a fleeting shot, but the internet is the internet, so of course they caught it. Number 2. Cap's shield fixes itself. Avengers Endgame. With a production as complex and a scope as epic as Avengers Endgame, it's little surprise that some little mistakes made it into the final cut, but possibly the oddest of all of its major continuity errors involves Captain America. You'll surely remember that Cap's shield ends up being broken by Thanos during their one-on-one battle, but once the rest of the heroes emerge through the portals, Cap can briefly be spotted on the right-hand side of the frame with a fully intact shield. Now, to be completely fair to the Russos, it's a grand sweeping shot of the heroes on the battlefield and therefore it's not super easy to spot, but clearly a VFX artist at some point decided to render Cap's shield as fully formed. Given that there are other continuity mistakes in the colossal busy battle, it's perhaps not terribly surprising, though given that Thanos wrecking Cap's shield is a major marquee moment of the third act, it's pretty strange that this could happen. Then again, considering the army of artists that probably worked on the film, it's possible that they were only ever shown the specific part of the battle that they were tasked with working on and didn't actually know anything else in continuity. And number 1, the vanishing jacket. Fled. There are continuity errors in $300 million superhero films, and there are head-smackingly ridiculous continuity errors in modestly budgeted genre films. 1996's buddy action comedy Fled, starring Lawrence Fishburne and Stephen Baldwin, may have fallen off the face of the earth shortly after its release, but its new claim to fame lies in this howlingly bizarre mistake. Midway through the film, Baldwin's Luke Dodge is wearing a thick grey sweater and then puts on a flannel jacket over the top whilst having a conversation with Fishburne's Charles Piper. Except when we cut to a side-on shot of the pair talking, Dodge's flannel jacket has suddenly disappeared before reappearing a few shots later. It's an especially strange continuity error because the shooting setup is just so simple, and there's very little reason why Baldwin would remove the jacket and then put it back on again while filming a simple camera setup. How could such an egregious mistake get past script supervisors, the wardrobe department, the director, the actors, hell, even the catering crew would have picked up on this? It's highly likely that the shots of Baldwin without the jacket were actually pickup shots filmed at a later date and then just inserted into the film, and somebody, and by that I mean everybody, failed to correctly check continuity with the existing footage. It's still a bafflingly thoughtless mistake, if at least one which lends added comedy value to a film that most critics agree isn't nearly funny enough.